Redondo. I am a first year going to my second year PhD student, and I study ecology evolution. So I study the environment and how different environments impact mammal wildlife. And this is Andrew.
I'm a first year. I'm a first year in biophysics. I'm a PhD student as well in biophysics, and I study how cells move around. But we're going to talk about some new interesting stuff.
So broadly, we're really interested in how different things that are living pretty much adapt or survive or cope with the various changes that the environment is facing. So it's kind of difficult to see, but as some people have brought up, we know that climate change is real and many things are changing. And this climate change is really induced by us. So we caused most of it, and usually it's caused, is this a clicker? Yeah. So some of them mentioned were like the greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide from our fossil fuel burning, but also like toxicants like our face creams, our toothpaste, our medications that end up in the water supplies and around the world, and those are having various impacts on the plants and animals around us, the bacteria and everything, and even us downstream. So these consequences really are leading to various things such as sea level rise, disease outbreaks, ocean acidification, and drought, among other things. And these are really the large ones that people are studying all over the place. And these are things that you guys can actually also study. So our overarching questions are really, again, as I mentioned, are how are these living things adapting to these changes? And in order to actually know what's going on, we need data. And so to get some data, we're going to approach it in various ways. So most of the people here have mentioned things that are going to be likely done maybe in a lab, but we can kind of do both. We can explore things and observe things out in the field, but we can also do some lab experiments or some experiments where we add some sort of component to this environment and see what the output is. So these are some sample project directions, and again, we're pretty broad, and we want you guys to also be creative and think about things that are of interest to you guys. So one of them is really the drought, and California is a really great example of drought, not in a great way, but a good example of just showing you the difference between 3 years of these water reservoirs on our land. This is Folsom Lake near Sacramento. We see here that there's a bunch of water, and within 3 years, most of it evaporated. And these are the things that are showing up around the world. Even increased temperatures like in the Middle East that reached like 125 degrees these last few years. So some of the questions that we can ask are not, we don't have to go outside to answer these questions. We can ask these questions here in your backyard or nearby. So some of them are looking at how does evaporation work in these different vegetation states. So we have your campus, we have a golf course, and we have a little park nearby. And like seeing how the evaporation rate may change in these different varying landscapes is really important, and it's really not known everywhere. So we might have tested it in the lab, but here we're able to ask it in new conditions. And then we can also look at other projects like how plants tolerate these different conditions, and also how microbes and bacteria tolerate these different conditions. So I'll pass it on to Andrew.
So one of the things that we mentioned was drought, as Sarah here just talked about. Another one is ocean acidification. To demonstrate this, Cooper, my handy assistant, is going to be putting out some eggs. And so what I did last night is I put these 2 eggs in some vinegar and touched them very gently. You'll notice that what happened is the shell of an egg is made out of calcium carbonate. Carbonate is the same sort of thing as in CO2, carbon dioxide. And the vinegar is acidic and it dissolves the shell. So these things are, you may have done it at home before, these are sort of rubber eggs. You actually can kind of touch them, and there's part of the egg that was outside and it's hard, and there's another part that's soft, so you can sort of just gently experiment, but don't push too hard because then it will explode all over your hands. Anyway, so that seems kind of cute and nice. But actually this is the same process that's happening in the ocean every day. And so this is a tiny little shell of a snail. It's actually about the size of a pea, but if you put this shell in a lightly acidic environment, about the acidity that we're expecting the ocean to be, which it's acidifying every day, and we're expecting to be this acidity in a few decades, within 45 days the shell is completely dissolving. So you can imagine how this is really impacting organisms throughout the ocean. So we'd like to be able to explore the effects of this on the ocean within the lab. So some things that we could do is we can look at how quickly these sort of snail shells or any sorts of things will be dissolving at different types of acidities. What can we expect to happen in the environment due to ocean acidification acidification. Also, there's a lot of plastics in the ocean. We don't know what's going to happen when the ocean becomes acidified. Will those plastics start to dissolve? Will they become more harmful for the organisms that live there? These are sort of the things that we need to know, we need to determine as scientists so we can help make concrete policy predictions and tell people what to do so that we can save the environment. That's one of the things we'd hope to get out of this, but I think I'm going to zoom forward a little bit. We're hoping that this kind of research will really help people learn more about the environment, help you learn, help tell your family more about the environment. But I think one of the things I really like about this project, you can see all the different areas where we can go and explore in your neighborhood and see how the environment is changing and how organisms are being affected by it. There's Entropy Hill, there's the golf course that Sergio mentioned, and the Coyote Creek. We would like to go there and explore that environment and see what's happening due to the changes in the seasons and the changing in the climate. So that's what we have to talk about. We'll hope you be interested in our team.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. All right.
Did that just come out?
No, it's good. So you had to use both. This is,
Yes. You can. Do you want to share?
Anything? I don't. Okay.
Okay, hi, I'm Athena. I'm also a third-year biophysics student. There's a lot of us here. So something that I'm interested in, or that we're interested in, is spatial organization in nature. And what we have here is a seashell that you might pick up on the beach. And you may have heard in your math classes about the Fibonacci sequence and the golden ratio. And what's really cool is shells like this sort of follow the golden ratio. The organization of the rings as the spiral expands follows a certain ratio in all cells. And so that's just one example of spatial organization that we can find in nature. And we're sort of interested in that as more broadly.
Okay. So hi, I'm the only non-PhD student here. So I'm a postdoc. So last year I was PhD student, and I'm in the same department as Athena, so bioengineering department at Stanford. So
is Dr. Enamani.
yeah. So yeah, we brought to you two amazing stories. The first one, as Athena mentioned, is the spatial organization. So to go to the definition of spatial organization is when group of elements are highly organized in a non-randomly way. And in the nature, so there is a lot of them, and this is what we call pattern. The title, it's up there, but it's pattern in nature. So we can find the patterns at a big and large scale, as in the zebra skin, or in the tigers, or in a small scale. So it's we have here the wings of the butterflies, or the skin of the fish, and more common and more close to us, our fingers. So our finger guys are made of the pattern processes. And people were interested into understanding how the patterns are formed. So these two nice and amazing pictures are present the skin of the fish, and people were trying to understand how can we have these highly organized lines. And this is what I'm going to show you. It's a model that is mimicking what people are sewing. So this is done in the computer in order to understand the model behind. And the model behind this, that people came out with, so it depends on the concentration of morphogenes or molecules. So the complexity of the patterns here, it depends on either, so if we have only one morphogen, so the local concentration of that one will give us a simple pattern. And if you have more than one, if morphogens are interacting with each other, we have the high or the more complex patterns. And if they don't interact with each other, we have a less complex pattern. And Athena is going to show you another example of the pattern in nature.
Yeah, so this here is actually a bacterial system. And you can see that, I don't know how to work this. So you can see that this is two colored bacteria. You have a blue bacteria and a yellow bacteria, and they actually sort of organize themselves. When they don't interact, they sort of organize themselves to look like those fish that we saw earlier. They have these spiral, like spoke-like rings, but if starting from a well-mixed mixture. But if they do interact with each other, you can see that starting from the same mixture, you get a totally different pattern, sort of a speckled pattern. And so what we're interested in doing is maybe what happens if we don't start with a well-mixed mixture? What happens if we separate them initially and see how they interact with each other at different shaped boundaries and things like that? So the tool that we're thinking about using for that is micropatterning. Micropatterning is a really cool technique that actually you can essentially like paint with whatever small molecule you want to look at, or cells. You can pattern cells. This is actually a thing that was done, this is a face of Einstein that was done in Hager's PhD lab. So she has a lot of experience with doing this sort of like art almost with patterning. Also, oh sorry, you went too far. Also, another, go back.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, okay, so also, tardigrades are pretty cool. This is totally unrelated to spatial patterning, but tardigrades are cool. So they're these very small animals that you can find on like moss or lichen or any sort of wet system, and they're basically indestructible. You can send them into space and they'll lay eggs in space. You can like send them to almost absolute zero and they'll survive. You can dry them out and they go into what's called this ton state, where they sort of condense themselves and lose all up to like 90% of the water in their bodies. So what we're interested in looking at is maybe going out to the local creek and finding these and then sort of setting, understanding what sort of conditions can send them into the ton state, what influences their survival rate, things like that. So, yeah.
Thank you.
I'm going first.
+1.
How does this thing?
I can click it.
How does it work? Oh. Wait, which one is the laser? The middle one? Okay, nice. Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Caleb Zerger. This is my friend Ilan Rosen. We're both first year, or second year, I guess, applied physics PhD students at Stanford, and we're going to talk about a brand new subject you've heard nothing about, science of energy. So, if you watch the news, or have even been watching like 5 of the last presentations, you know, oh, what just happened? How do I go? You know that the world is ending. There's global warming. We are running out of fossil fuels, and we're not going to have enough energy to survive. So that brings up the very scientific question of what will save us. So there are a few answers to this question that we hope you guys will want to explore. So one that a lot of people have talked about is new ways of power generation, such as solar cells was the most popular one. So something exciting that happened recently is under certain conditions, we've managed to make solar cells so that the cost of them, you can't really see it, the cost of solar cells for a certain amount of energy is actually less than coal under certain proper conditions. But of course the problem is that the sun is not always shining, unfortunately. So that means that we need better forms of power storage, like new kinds of batteries, also something people talked about. So, in addition to making and storing power better, it's also useful to just save power by using things that are more energy efficient or regenerating power from places that you wouldn't expect. So to talk about some specifics, I'll turn it over to Ilan.
So there's a large number of types of batteries. Everyone here has probably heard of lithium ion. They're really big right now. They're in cell phones, they're in cars, they're in everything. But what we're interested in maybe pursuing.
The little one?
Yeah.
Should you talk into that?
Oh, okay.
Who aren't here.
Oh, definitely. Okay, so lithium ion batteries are sort of everywhere, but we're interested in using liquid type batteries because they're a little bit easier to play with. So this animation will play. It's not going to play. Okay.
Oh, she can
So anyway, these types of batteries, what they do is they use an oxidation reduction reaction, which maybe you've heard of in chemistry class. But the point is, through this reaction, you develop a potential between these two liquid cells, and then you can actually power whatever devices off of it. I'll let the animation play. So there's a lot of things you can explore with these types of devices. There's a lot of parameters you can change. What kind of chemicals are you using? What kind of ions are you using? What kind of shape or construction do you make your cells in? Do you make it larger? Do you make more of them? Et cetera, et cetera. So that's a lot of parameter space that you can explore and try to improve these batteries. Some other interesting characteristics are that any type of battery has some sort of characteristic current voltage relationship. And that results in a peak power. So you can see this shape, and there's some sort of peak power as a result of this current voltage relationship. So that's a really interesting thing to explore. And the last thing I wanted to mention about them is that another really important thing is recharging them. Powering your device is only half of it. You have to be able to get energy back into it at the end of the day. And so that's a really huge topic that we can explore with these types of liquid battery cells. And we also wanted to mention that there's a Stanford group actually that recently replaced the contacts in a type of battery. They just changed it to a graphite compound, and in doing so they made the world's best battery. So the point is that this is a project where I think if you guys play around with it, you can actually do something that maybe is going to be really useful and important.
Yeah, so last thing, not related to batteries, but another cool way